This is to all my parents out there. Listen, don't let these ungrateful, spoiled, entitled, supposed to be adult children hoodwink you into thinking that you've been a shitty parent. And I'm not talking about the parents who had kids and conveniently disappeared out of their lives. I'm talking about us, the ones who have been there from the beginning, been consistently there supporting our kids, every basketball game, every choir concert, every student teacher conference, every time they've been sick, all of those things. Parents who have been there, been positive presence and been a positive presence in their kids' lives, always, breathing life into them and just always being there. These kids done lost their goddamn minds. Seriously though. And listen, it's funny because as a therapist, I see children 17 and up, and even adults who have such animosity and negative feelings about their parents. Now, mind you, some of them are warranted, but some of the stories that I hear sometimes, I'm looking at these kids with the side eye.
Shout out to Krista the therapist for that video that you just saw. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this doesn't speak to everyone out there, right? But this is what our children are going to therapy and they are telling their therapists. And, we have a completely different view of how we raised them and what was going on in the household. So anyhow, we're going to get right into this. You can check her out, Krista the therapist, on TikTok. And, I thought that was a good lead-in, especially we were talking about overfunctioning. And when you're overfunctioning and you're doing all these things, and then you find out, your kid's going to therapy saying that, thinking in their mind that all the things that you did that you thought you were doing and all the good reasons you thought you were doing them, they have a completely different view. Today we are jumping into our next part of the series, which is what happens when you stop overfunctioning. Yes, let's get into it. So you did it, right? You finally stopped being the fixer, the go-to person, the one holding it down, and everyone together. And you were probably expecting peace, right? But instead, everything got loud. Your mind erupted into a storm of chaos and a huge wave of anxiety, guilt, and just plain discomfort washed over you. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And that internal noise, it's trying to tell you something incredibly important. And I played that video at the beginning, and that's why, because we need to listen to ourselves. We need to find ourselves to listen to ourselves, because this, whatever you're feeling, that chaos that you're feeling, is trying to tell you something important about why you were doing so much in the first place. So if you're over 40 and quietly exhausted, you're in the right place, especially if you're a mom. This is not the kind of exhaustion sleep fixes. This is the kind that comes from being the strong one, the fixer, the emotional glue for a very long time. And today I want to talk about something that no one really warns women about. What happens after you stop overfunctioning, right? Because basically that's what the therapist at the beginning is telling all of you, right? Krista the therapist, she's saying, stop it. But what happens after you do? This is the silence that isn't silent. For years, maybe your whole life, you've been the one who's always doing, always managing. In psychology, there's a term for this, overfunctioning, right? We've been talking about that. It's a pattern where you take on way more than your fair share in your relationships, at work, and in your family. And remember, the way you do one thing, the way you do something in one place, the way you do it is the way you're going to do it in another place. So if you're overfunctioning at home, you're most likely doing it at work too. And the worst part is that you're doing things for others that they can absolutely do for themselves. From the outside, you look like the capable, reliable, and strong one. But on the inside, you're running on a treadmill of anxiety that never, ever stops. Here's the thing. Overfunctioning isn't a personality trait. It's just not. It's not something to be proud of. There's a reason for it. It's an anxiety-driven response, often rooted in our childhood. Now, if you grew up in a chaotic home or with parents who were emotionally checked out, taking on responsibility might have been how you created a sense of safety. Sit with that for a minute. And not only did this give you safety, it gave you a sense of control. Being the responsible one became your identity because you learned that your value and maybe even your safety was tied to how useful you were to others. So you became the planner, the reminder, the emotional shock absorber for everyone around you. You learned to anticipate everyone's needs, usually while completely ignoring your own. This constant doing keeps your nervous system on high alert. I just recently made another video where I talked about the amygdala, or if I haven't, I will talk about that, about how your mind responds. I'll do a separate video on that. This is a state known as hypervigilance. You're not just being helpful. Your body is trying to manage threats and prevent everything from falling apart. The amygdala is the part of your brain that has the fight or flight response. So what happens when you decide to stop? You expect peace. You expect the quiet you've been desperately asking for and craving. Instead, the silence is deafening. And it's also filled with a chaotic noise that seems to come from nowhere. I mean, it's so unexpected. It's like your brain is telling you, like, you're danger, right? This isn't a sign you've made a mistake. It's the first sign that you're finally starting to heal. I don't know who said healing was fun. You know, it's like having surgery. The first part of healing is not fun. There is usually pain associated with healing. Now, that internal chaos you feel when you stop overfunctioning, it's the sound of your own system coming out of what's known as a functional freeze. For years, you've been so busy managing everyone else's world that you've been numb to your own. So you basically froze your own world to take care of everybody else's. All that activity was a distraction. It was brilliant. It was a great way to avoid uncomfortable feelings you were holding inside. And it worked for a while. For a lot of overfunctioners, rest feels dangerous. You will see overfunctioners like, they have ADHD. They just can't stop running. They can't stop moving. On a subconscious level, your brain learned that if you're still, you might get criticized abandoned, or things will just spiral out of control. So you stay busy. You use productivity as a shield. As a shield against what, you ask? Well, it shields you against those deeper worries or feelings of not being good enough. The moment you put that shield down, everything you've been holding back comes to the surface. It comes flooding, it floods right in. You know, I used to wonder, people used to say to me like, why don't you sit down? And I'd say, oh, I don't know. I'm just, I don't want to sit down. I've been sitting all day, but I just couldn't. This is why the loudness feels so overwhelming though. It's years of suppressed anxiety, unprocessed grief, and unexpressed anger finally getting a voice. Yeah, that voice in your head. It's not external yet, but it's that voice in your head that's churning. That's the noise you're hearing. It's the guilt that was programmed into you, screaming that you're being selfish for daring to put your needs first. Your mind might race with the worst case scenarios. Totally convinced. You will totally convince yourself that if you're not in control, everything will collapse. That's what your brain's doing. And that's the part you weren't expecting. But this is the storm before it gets quiet. This isn't reality. It's a nervous system memory. Your body is reacting like a threat. It's right. It feels like that threat is right around the corner, because for a long time, not being in control was a threat. It's profoundly disorienting. You thought you were working towards peace, right? And all of a sudden, you walked right into an internal storm. But hear me out. That storm isn't a sign of failure. That's your first sign of life. It's the sound of feeling returning to a part of you that has been numb for a very, very long time. It's that part of you that you couldn't feel because you kept so busy doing everything for everyone. Now, I want to talk about why others react just as your inner world gets loud, which is even crazier, right? You'll probably notice your outer world gets noisy too. When you stop overfunctioning, the people around you are going to feel that shift. And as your brain is telling you, be careful, are you sure? There are people around you that honestly might not like the shift either. You see, overfunctioning doesn't happen in a vacuum. It creates this dynamic where there's an overfunctioner and there's an underfunctioner. So after all the overfunctioning that you did, there are people there are people around you who have gotten very used to you carrying the load. And we're not blaming anyone. It's about a relational system that gets knocked off balance when one person is overfunctioning. And you may have, without realizing it, taught people that you will always step in. So they learn to step back. So when you decide to change the steps, and I call it kind of a dance, you change the whole system. Your partner, who never had to think about where the pots and pans were, might suddenly get irritated when you ask them to make their own eggs. Now they got to figure out where everything is. You're not going to go look it up for them. Your coworker who relied on you for reminders might actually miss a deadline. Your family might call you selfish or distant because you're no longer on call 24/7. This pushback can feel like a direct hit. It might feel even confirming to your deepest fears that you're letting people down, that you are selfish. But it's so important to reframe this, okay? Because like we said already, this is the first part of healing. Their reaction is not proof that you're doing something wrong. It's evidence of how necessary this change was, because they depended on you so much for things that they could probably have done themselves all along. Their discomfort is a spotlight on just how much you were doing for them. It's not your job to manage their feelings about your new boundaries. Because that's what you're essentially doing, is putting up new boundaries, right? Letting them feel their own discomfort is part of letting them step into their own capability. You're not abandoning anyone. You're giving them the opportunity to become more responsible for themselves. And I know we've been talking about our children, overfunctioning with our children, but like I said, the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. And so this overfunctioning spills over into many other parts of your life. And this change is what will bring a healthy balance back into the relationship. So you have to let the discomfort happen. Is this hitting home for you? That feeling of being stuck between your own needs and everyone else's expectations? If so, go ahead and subscribe and click the bell. This channel is a space to figure out these complex feelings together. I've worked through them and I continue to work through them. And please share your own experiences in the comments, because I want to hear them. Other people want to read them. And because reading through these comments is such a powerful reminder that none of us are on this journey alone. Whether you've been underfunctioning or overfunctioning in your dynamic, it's really important that we know we're not alone. I want to talk now about, what do we do with all this noise inside of you and outside of you? Well, you have to learn to listen to it. That chaos is not random. It's information. It's your body and your mind finally telling you what they've needed all along. For years, your body has probably been sending you quiet signals. The whispers of burnout, the chronic tension in your shoulders, digestive issues, trouble sleeping. These are all signs of overfunctioning. Overfunctioning is a masterclass in ignoring these whispers. When you stop, the whispers become screams, right? So all of a sudden, you're feeling the gastric distress, the shoulder pain. Feel through that. That bone deep exhaustion you suddenly feel, it's not new. It's the burnout you've been masking with adrenaline for years. The adrenaline kept you from feeling your own body and your own aches and pains. It's anxiety. It's your nervous system trying to recalibrate from a constant state of fight or flight. And I think I will make that video about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex so you can understand scientifically a little bit more of what's happening. Drop a brain in the comments if you would like me to do that. This is where self-awareness becomes your greatest tool. The loudness is your inner voice, finally coming back online. It's asking you questions you haven't had space to even think about in years. Questions like, what do I actually want? And what do I actually need right now in this moment? For so many overfunctioners, these are questions they have never, ever allowed themselves to ask. Can you believe it? You've been asking these questions of yourself for other people, but have never asked those same questions about yourself. And there might be anger that bubbles up. And that can be especially scary. Many of us who are people pleasers learned to disconnect from healthy anger because it wasn't safe to show it. It was not safe. It was not safe at all to show it when we were young. You might get in trouble. You might hurt someone's feeling. You might be too much. But that anger is protective. It's the part of you that tells you when a boundary has been crossed. So learning to listen to it without letting it take over is how you learn to protect yourself. So you could be angry without being reactive. The loudness is not the problem. It's the beginning of the solution. It is the raw data of your unmet needs, all the things you couldn't feel, all the things you didn't say, all the things you pushed down and pushed away. It's time to feel yourself again. Now, navigating this internal storm is not about making the noise go away. It's about learning to sit with it, understand it, and respond to it with compassion. This is such a slow and gradual process. It's needed, and it happens one small step at a time to allow you to adjust to this new way of being, to allow your body to adjust. First, you just need to notice, instead of getting swept away by a wave of guilt, just observe it, acknowledge it without judging it. Okay, I'm feeling guilty because I said no. It makes sense that I feel this way, given my history of people pleasing, but it doesn't mean I did anything wrong. So you need to be reframing this in your mind in a more positive way. This creates just a tiny bit of space between you and the emotion, and that's what you need. That's how you heal. And second, you want to start small. You don't have to go from doing everything to doing nothing, right? That's a lot for you, and that's going to be a lot for those around you. The goal here is balance. Try delegating one small thing you'd normally handle. Maybe it's asking your partner to, I don't know, to be in charge of dinner one day a week, one night a week, right? And then tolerating the discomfort when it's not done exactly the way you want it to be done. Because see, if you criticize at this point, that person is probably not going to do it. So you're just going to have to accept it also the way it comes. And accept that they may not do it the way you do. And third, you have to teach your nervous system that it's safe to be still. So guess what that means? You have to redefine rest. Start by scheduling just 5 minutes of doing nothing. I don't know. I just posted another video. I said, go to the bathroom and sit there for 5 minutes and just do nothing. No phone, no to-do list, just 5 minutes of sitting and breathing. It's probably gonna feel so freaking uncomfortable. It's maybe you might even feel anxious. And that's normal. Stay with it. This is how you build your capacity for peace. Meditation works great for this. When I first started meditating, I was like, what is this? My mind was racing and I couldn't sit still. And fourth, you want to practice the smallest no. Setting boundaries is a muscle. So you got to start with low stakes, right? Or low stakes situations. Say no to an extra task you don't have time for. And don't offer a long apologetic explanation. No is a full sentence. A simple, I can't take that on right now is powerful, and it's also complete. You don't need to explain your way out of it. What explanations do is throw you right back into that fight or flight because it brings on for others to challenge you. And you're not bringing on a challenge. You're stating a fact and you're stating your position, your boundary, and that's it. You're done. And finally, offer yourself some radical compassion. Seriously. You literally learn to overfunction to survive. You are not broken. You are unlearning a pattern that kept you safe for a very, very, very long time. It's time to be as kind to yourself as you have always been to everyone else. You deserve it. And you need it right now. Listen, when you stop overfunctioning, everything gets loud because you are finally listening to yourself. And that's a beautiful thing. For so long, your life has been organized around everyone else's needs. And that chaos that you're hearing and that you're feeling and that you're getting from outside of you, from everyone around you, that's the sound of your own needs, your own desires, and your own voice making their way back home to you. This journey is not about becoming selfish. Not at all. It's about becoming whole. It's about building relationships based on real connection, not your endless labor. Not your ability to overfunction so that others can underfunction. It's about discovering who you are when you are not constantly performing for your worth. The process is messy, let me tell you. Not everyone's gonna like it. It's gonna be rough at first. It's gonna be rocky. It's uncomfortable, and it's anything but quiet. But on the other side of that noise isn't an empty silence. That's the beautiful part. It's a silence that is finally beautifully full of you and the things you love and the things you remember about yourself. And that is the true peace you were looking for all along. All along. You are not broken. You are not failing, and you are not doing this wrong. This season isn't asking you to disappear. It's asking you to finally listen. And if you're over 40 and quietly exhausted, especially if you're a mom, you belong here. And I'm glad you are here. Take what you need and leave the rest. And I'll see you in the next one.